Okay, see this picture of this guy? Don't you think he's hot?
Yeah.
He used to be a girl.
No way.
That's how to be a bad ally.
Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome back to the second episode of Trans Talk. Today I'm here with one of my allies, and we are going to talk about being an ally. So let's get right into it. Lindsay is going to ask me some questions, and we're going to hear from Lindsay about some ally experiences, because they're important as well as the trans experience. It's all of our experience together.
Okay, so what does a trans ally mean to you? Like, when you hear that word, like, what does it mean?
Man, it's just basically like being a good person, being a good friend, and just like showing up and speaking up when needed, just like you would in any sort of situation when you care about somebody and just want to do what is right. But being an ally is not only like with people that you are close to and you're friends with. If I saw somebody on the street who was being discriminated against because of their sexuality and whatnot, I would step in and be an ally for that person.
So what would you say is the most annoying thing or the most common thing that you'd say like trans allies would say, but you can see them actually not being a good ally?
So I think it's important that allies are educated, but going about how you become educated and asking questions can sometimes come across wrong. Like, let's say you didn't know something about being transgender and you came up to me and asked me something that might be offensive to some people. It's important for me to know that your intentions are good. You are just looking to learn and be educated so that you can help and support. But I can also take that opportunity to correct the way that you are asking those questions and reaching out for information.
And I think an example of that, I definitely grew up with Benton coming out as trans, and we were both pretty young when it happened. So we both kind of went through an immaturity of understanding. We're still friends now. So you can think of it as a question that almost every single person I've known always asks is sexual stuff. And that's something that comes to mind, and you're so curious about it. It's like, well, how does a transgender person have sex? And the first thing that you just need to ask yourself as an ally is is that an acceptable question to ask someone else that's not trans? Just because now that they're trans doesn't mean that they have to give you all this personal information.
Very good point.
Thank you. So how do you do it? What if someone is really, really curious though, and they want to know those kinds of answers because they want a deeper understanding, but they know that asking it is unacceptable? What kind of resources should they go to?
The short answer is the internet. There's so much online. It goes as far as showing the process of people's surgeries and them in surgery, how their surgery happens, what their results are. Very, very personal, intimate things that people put online exactly for the purpose of educating people and sharing their experience to help somebody else.
Would you say that a danger you could see in that is that people might kind of get a generalization? Oh, they see this one trans male went and got bottom surgery, so that's something that all trans males are now gonna get. How do they cross the line between not wanting to ask personal questions but also getting misinformation on the internet?
There is a lot of misinformation on the internet. I think it's important for, someone like me to see what this full procedure could look like if it was something I wanted to do. But the reality is, some people who are trans, they don't go on hormones, they don't have surgeries, and it always varies from person to person and where they are at in their transition. And so I think the key is that there's just a balance of information available to people. So it's important for allies and people looking to be educated to know that not everybody undergoes these procedures and makes all the same decisions. I also see good in researching these other things that are maybe a little bit generalized, as long as they've made a touch point and an understanding that not everybody is actually going to do this.
What's something that you think that other trans people could do to actually help allies with their better understanding? And it's not the fault falls on the trans person to do this. The ally in question is someone that you actually care about as well, that you can make things easier for them. What are some ways that you think you could do that?
I think it's important, even just in being a friend with somebody and them being your ally, is you just need to let them know what you need from them. You need to tell them what your pronouns are, what the name is you want to go by. Maybe there are some places where you still want to go by these pronouns, but you're comfortable with your true pronouns elsewhere. They can help you in those situations. And so I think communicating what you need and what the best things they can do for you to support you, because they can't do those things if they don't know. So that takes a bit of self-awareness and just the openness and the communication between people.
That's a really good point. I have other friends that are trans as well, and they have different pronouns. Growing up with just knowing Benton, I kind of assumed that it would all be like him. As I did more research and became friends with more people, I really realized being transgender is not a blanket statement at all. What is the most annoying thing that you see like trans allies saying like online?
People who have intentions to speak up and to support, but in the way that they are executing that, they are actually speaking over. Maybe they are oversharing from one specific situation that doesn't apply to somebody else in the community. If you are speaking over people in the community, you are taking away their opportunity to share their personal story. And you are there as an ally to support and raise the voice of what they have told you and what their story is. When somebody comes out to you, that's their story, and it's not yours to reshare and to make public to people that they haven't given you consent to do so.
What is your opinion on, especially when you're kind of first transitioning, your friends outing you to other people? And like right off the bat, that can sound like a really bad thing, like, oh, it's like never out someone. But if it's like people that maybe you would never interact with, like maybe I have like a family dinner and the topic comes up and then I end up saying like, oh, actually I have a friend that's trans. Do you think that you should be able to say stuff like that? Or is it like never ever out anybody ever?
I think again, it just comes back to the intentions. And so if you're at a family dinner and you're sharing this, I know that it's your intention to educate them and to talk about it with them so that it's something that's just well known. And I'm somebody that's in your life quite often, and you probably want to be able to talk about those things with your family. For me personally, I would rather have people know that are in my life because it makes me feel more comfortable and I can be my true self and talk about what's actually going on. But there have been situations where I've been outed by people and their intentions are not to educate. I believe that their intentions were rather to protect. So this person that I've come out to knows that there's a new individual entering our circle, and so they feel the need to share that I'm trans with this new person coming in. And I believe it's to either make sure they don't say anything that might be offensive to me because they know this person, maybe they're prone to doing those things, so they need to warn them first. And I don't feel like people need to be warned about anything, really.
I can see that happening a lot more if someone isn't passing as well. But as like a precursor to the group, they tell the other person like he's trans and these are his pronouns.
Yes.
Kind of thing. And it's like it's coming from a place of good.
Yeah.
But also it's like you did just out that person. You know what? Every single one of these questions can just be answered by just talking to your friend. What does the word privilege mean to you?
Ooh, privilege is, to me, my interpretation, my understanding, is that there are things in my life because of who I am and where I live, the color of my skin, that I will never experience or have a first-hand understanding of. And that's just something I need to be aware about.
And so a lot of the times I see the phrase like check your privilege thrown around online, and as a trans ally, I think you just need to realize that like if you will never have to worry about outing your gender or telling someone your pronouns, and those are just social things, like everything else like money, surgeries, any kind of like discrimination, if you will never have to go through that in your normal life, then you have a privilege. I know it's a word that like when I hear it, it almost like honestly it kind of pisses me off because it's just like oh, like check your privilege, and it just kind of comes from such like a negative view. But also you just need to like realize like yeah, you are privileged, like calm down. Do you see that maybe like the way the word's kind of thrown around is like in a very negative context?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think it's kind of used like as an attack, and as you said, it's in a very like negative way. Something that I think people should practice day to day in life, realizing and being aware of those things, right?
So the next time, if you ever hear someone say check your privilege, and you do get that first kind of like hit of like annoyance because maybe you have things in your life that you don't feel privileged as, it's not like I'm privileged and you're not. It's like there's so many different things that people can be privileged and not privileged for. But at the end of the day, just realize what you can be grateful for.
And that's the thing, it's like a competition. Who has it the worst? Why do we go about it that way?
Yeah. For example, you getting in a waiting line for a surgery, someone could say like, wow, that's because you're Canadian, like you're so lucky. It's like, why did you make it into a bad thing?
Yes, yeah.
So if you remember the intro part, showing someone a picture of your trans friend, and maybe you're really proud of them because they look really good, and then you're like, yeah, he used to be a girl. And it's almost like saying that, it's like you want it to be a compliment. Amazing, it's impressive, it's something you want to like brag about and talk about because it's interesting. But maybe you can talk about why that's not a good thing.
I think a lot of people do that just to get a reaction out of the person they're showing the photos to. And some trans people might even be upset with that just because you're saying, look at this person who was a girl before and is now a guy. And to some people, they never really truly identified as a girl. So that's the first red flag there. The second one is that you are outing the person not for their sake, but purely just to create a shock factor between you and a buddy. But yeah, like you mentioned, there are times where it's like, wow, look at how good this person is doing. But I think a better way to go about that would just to be to show a photo of the after and maybe say, my friend is going through a transition, look at how happy they are now.
Aww. When we were younger, I absolutely was that person though. But now looking back on it, I like cringe big time. I'm just like, oh my god, because I could put myself in those shoes. It's like you're like a circus animal. Like, what are some phrases that you think like trans allies say that are actually harmful?
Saying things like, wow, you can hardly even tell.
One that I think you get a lot on your channel is like, yeah, like you even kind of looked like a boy when you were a girl.
When I show these photos of myself with long hair, and for the comparison's sake, just to show how far I've come, it is not an invitation for people to make comments about the way I used to look. It's to celebrate the journey.
I can see as an ally how saying that you think it's a compliment because you're like, well, they were always a boy, and I'm saying that they always looked like a boy.
I think when people make that comment as well, going back to something we mentioned in our 70 questions video, people only say those things like, wow, you look like a boy, or these features make you look more like a man. It's because of their own social understanding for them, what they think makes somebody a certain gender. But what's important is that you know that even if you don't conform to all of these things that society wants us to be, that you are still your gender and your identity, and it doesn't matter. And it's really sad and difficult to think about the small boxes that people try and put us in and say that this is who you are because of this, this, and this. But in reality, people are so different, and that's something that we need to open our minds up a little bit more to and be more accepting of.
So to sum it all up, things that you can do to be a better ally are ask respectful questions, do your own research online, don't overgeneralize, realize your own privilege and where your life experience is coming from, and really try to put yourself in the other person's shoes and think if this conversation is appropriate. And the sixth point is that you would fight for them even when they're not in the room.
What you can do for your allies is to just simply communicate what you need from them. You can invite them to events to come support you, and you can share your experiences and continue to educate them.
So if you're an ally and you learned something, be sure to give a thumbs up and leave a comment if you have any other tips that you think even someone like me who has been an ally for God knows how long can improve, because it's always a learning process.
For sure. Yeah, you can comment down below and let us know what you would like your ideal ally to do. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching this video. There are a few questions on the side of this video. If you would like to partake, you can let us know what you want our next topic to be.
So if you want to see more episodes of trans talks or other content that Benton and I make together, be sure to hit subscribe and click the bell for notifications.
Otherwise, we will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.